External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has defended India's all-alignment approach to diplomacy, stating that the country should be admired for its ability to foster relationships globally, including with Russia as well as the United States. However, he advised against labeling India as an unsentiment ally transactional nation. Dr. Jaishankar has made these remarks at the Munich Security Conference in response to a question about whether India's Western partners approve of its purchase of Russian oil during the Ukraine conflict. He was sitting at the panel besides US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock. He has stated, and I quote, "If I'm smart enough to have multiple options, you should be, in fact, admiring me." Akshit, my colleague, joins us. Akshit, earlier itself, Dr. Jaishankar has held bilateral meetings with the German Foreign Minister as well as the US Secretary of State. He's held a slew of other bilaterals with the Foreign Minister of the UK, the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, as well as Peru. What details can you give our viewers? He's also held a brief conversation with Wang Yi, that is the Chinese top diplomat. So what details can you give us regarding Dr. Jaishankar's visit to Munich?
Yes, as Jaishankar was speaking on the sidelines of Munich conference, he stood alongside US's, Antony Blinken. He basically asserted that India should not be criticized for having multiple options and reaffirmed the stand and commitment to buy Russian oil despite restrictive sanctions on Russia and the ongoing war with Ukraine. He was also asked about India's foreign policy priorities in the backdrop of the observations that it is transition from non-alignment to all-alignment. Then he said that it should not be a problem, and he also said that, if I just quote, if I'm smart enough to have multiple options, you should be admiring me. And he also questioned that, is that a problem for others? So of course, he reaffirmed his stand, and he also put forward the question mentioning India's continuing procurement of crude oil from Russia. And also he added that good partners provide choices and smart partners take some of those choices. This is the 60th Munich Security Conference, which got underway from 16th February to 18th February.
All right, Akshit, I'd like to thank you for joining us on the broadcast, providing all those details. But also joining us this morning is Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, former diplomat, as well as Group Captain Devnath, defense expert, and Wing Commander Bakshi, defense expert. I'd like to wish a very good morning to all the guests joining us on the broadcast this morning. My very first question to Ambassador Goel, Dr. Jaishankar was in fact sharing the dais with Antony Blinken when he had made these remarks, and a very witty response, if I must say. Do you think this is testament to India's burgeoning presence and an acceptance of the world regarding India being a Vishwamitra?
Good morning, Pia, and thank you very much for this question. Minister Jaishankar, having been a personal friend before, when we were in service together, is a very smart person, and therefore the remark is not just witty, but a very smart response to questions raised by our European friends and partners, including across the Atlantic Ocean, the USA, on what India's foreign policy is all about, really. And therefore, a very witty and very smart answer, I would say. The point is that the Munich Security Conference is about European security. It is not the world security. If you look at the participants and the issues being discussed, it is a one and a half track dialogue involving both the think tanks and the officials. And that is important, that India is invited to the security conference, which is primarily discussing European security, number one. Number two, the answer about the various options is clearly a message to the Europeans, and very important message. Just like the Europeans and the Americans keep all their options open till the last moment, and even beyond the last moment, and they never really close any option. India has every right to keep all the options on the table and decide accordingly. So therefore, multi-alignment, all alignment, whatever you want to call it, it is our option. And lastly, one thing that I would like to say, and I'm sure that Minister Jaishankar is quite aware of it. Just like we have begun to focus on our options and build more options, the world is not stationary. Other countries are also building their options. And therefore, we have to be increasingly competitive in this world where every country is exercising their option, whether it is Israel or Ukraine or Russia, you name it, even in Africa, everywhere. And therefore, we need to build up our options which are not transient, but which can stand with us for a longer time. And from that point of view, building security with Europe, Global South are two very, very good options, which I'm sure the minister is focusing on. Yeah.
Indeed, you've spoken about India sort of solidifying, consolidating its ties with Europe, and I'd like to take this forward to Group Captain Devnath. Sir, Dr. Jaishankar has also said that India is non-West and not anti-West. So in this regard, what do you think India can further do? Because India is, in fact, it is no secret that we are purchasing oil from Russia, but at the same time, we are inking defense contracts with France as well as the United States.
Oh, yes, Pia, it shows a new India with new confidence. It also shows a new India where we want to tell the world that we are with everyone and we are not against anyone. India wants to exploit the global opportunities for the betterment of its own people. We don't want to threaten anyone. All that we want that all countries in the world should move together, pull in their resources, all type of resources, and work for global humanity welfare. Now, as far as this remarks, very, very beautiful and smart response given by Shri S. Jaishankar during Munich Security Conference shows that India has positioned best of the people at best of the chair. S. Jaishankar was a diplomat, and he is now turning out to be one of the finest foreign minister, external affairs minister India ever had. See, this Western countries sometimes try to give a hint to India that probably we should align with Western way of thinking, which means they want us to be clearly anti-Russian. It is not so. Gone are the days of non-aligned movement when India followed certain principles which were not very, very practical. Today, we are a country which is very, very practical. We know what is best for India. We have shown during BRICS, we also shown during G7, G20 that we have our own independent thinking. India does want to lead the global south. We want to become voice of global south, no doubt about it. A global south needs a strong voice on the world arena. India is willing to perform that role. Western countries know it, that India is now new emerging leader, undeclared leader. Day is not far away when probably will be a very, very strong contender for permanent membership with veto power in United Nations. So Western powers know it. They play they are playing the game. Very fact that during S. Jaishankar's briefing and response, Antony Blinken was smiling. It shows that America also knows a very, very emerging higher and a brilliant stature of India. America knows that they have to tolerate India, accept India's new resurgent and very, very positive role India wants to play in World Forum. Yes, Pia?
Indeed, you've spoken about the BRICS, and this is also something that Dr. Jaishankar had addressed during that very conversation. He had in fact stated, and I'm quoting, that the BRICS started in the era when Western dominance was very strong, and he had also pointed to how 30 countries were keen to join, and had stated that if 30 countries saw value in it, then there must be something good we have done. And speaking of the global south, Dr. Jaishankar has in fact held a bilateral meeting with Sheikh Hasina, and has interestingly also briefly interacted with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. And I'd like to take this across to Wing Commander Bakshi, who's been waiting rather patiently. Now, Bangladesh, of course, we've seen Sheikh Hasina being re-elected, even despite tacit opposition from the United States of America. And meanwhile, China, of course, it's no secret that they are prodding us at our borders. They are also prodding the Philippines in the South China Sea, and they're of course looking at prodding us in and around Maldives and at the Coco Islands itself. So how crucial do you think these meetings are, and what sort of message does Dr. Jaishankar meeting top leaders from across the world give to, of course, the global arena?
Thanks, Pia. As our both brilliant speakers have already mentioned, that nuances of our foreign policy, let us be very clear. America, Russia, India, we all know what is in our interest. Yes, there was a time when the Western powers thought that what is in their interest should be in their interest, and what is in the South countries' interest should also correlate to the Western interest. That is what they thought, and they also got away with a lot of time. India had started telling them a long back that when India went for Russian equipment, it is at that time this statement was made, and that we are independent, our policies are independent, our requirements are independent, our threats are independent, different threats are there. So your policy is as per your threats and requirements, my policy is as per my threats and requirements, because our situation is different. We are not European Union country where you don't even require an army. So that is what it is. So now, whereas you see China growing in South China Sea, coming into Coco Island, getting into Gadar, getting into Habbantota, and into Maldives, and artificial island, India knows what to do. India has already started on this path, and our policies are very clear. That is why Anthony Blinken was smiling, because they knew what answer of what Jaishankar answer would be. He knew that now India thinks of everybody, all right, but it also keeps its interest in mind. And that's what is our interest, that China has to be curtailed. Bangladesh will be told, yes, you have seen a lot of activities in Bangladesh, which India may not like. It's not, yes. And even in Myanmar, where we're getting into Coco Island, bringing in Chinese in there, India may not like. India will clarify the whole thing. And Anthony Blinken knows, and Russia knows, that what India's stand would be in South China Sea, as Shinzo Abe had already suggested, and as Joe Biden had already reiterated, that India must start taking the leadership of South China Sea, creating a union of Asia Pacific countries, and that is how we should come up. So, Pia, the things are not far. G7 to G20 is an example into that, how limited interest becomes the overall interest of countries if they have to survive. India has brought in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and that is what it means, that we must all think of everybody, and that is how we should survive.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.